Haha, I forgot to add myself. Let me just check the audio. Come on, audio. Why can't I hear? Oh, is it working? Haha, I forgot to add myself. Okay. All right, that'll do. All right. So the live stream has indeed started, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be going through half a dozen to a dozen articles, all with one particular theme, which is racism. And we're going to be reading through that because there's a bit of racism going on, and I've had enough of it. God damn it. No more racism. Now I'm getting in on this game. I'm going to be doing what I can to put an end to this godforsaken racism once and for all, you know? So that's what we're doing. We're now riding with Biden. We've dumped Trump, and we're now on a mission to root out systemic racism. So we're going to go through at least half a dozen, perhaps a dozen articles, all with this one theme in mind. As I've mentioned in chat, which you can't see if you're watching this after the fact, I believe, because I'm not smart enough to incorporate chat within Streamyards, other than when you click on someone's comment, which I occasionally remember to do. But yeah, it is an open panel. So if you're listening to this after the fact, which by the way, you're not, because no one listens to my live streams, only a couple of people turn up at most. So if you are an imaginary person that is listening to this live stream after the fact, just bear in mind that if you were to subscribe to me and if you were to look at the notifications and you saw that I was going to do a live stream in about an hour's time or whatever, you would have the opportunity to come on and speak, you know, not necessarily speak to me. You don't have to speak to me, but you can say your piece. You can speak to other people in chat, should there be any, which there won't be. But you do have that facility available with some moderation, of course. So, you know, I think that would be quite nice to experiment with that. And if it goes horribly wrong, then so be it. I mean, even if I was to get my channel removed, which I don't think would happen, I think my moderation would step in before anything too untoward should occur. But even if that were to happen, you know, whatever. I've got 130 subscribers. It's not really a big deal, really, is it? I mean, so I might as well just experiment with that. And that's kind of why I'm here doing this for another hour or so, is because I'm bored and I want to have some level of interaction with somebody, for fuck's sake. And you know, I go online, I go to other people's YouTube's channel, and with the exception of one or two, maybe three, maybe four, but with very few exceptions, I don't really enjoy other people's live streams. I enjoy I greatly admire the potential that live streams have to offer. They have to offer interaction, which I admire, which admire is not the right word, but which is what I seek. I seek interaction, but doesn't quite work in my favor in most of the other streams that I go to, with a couple of exceptions, a handful of exceptions. So, you know, fuck it, I might as well try to generate that kind of community is not the right word, forum, I guess. You know, I might as well use the tools that are available to me, which include Streamyards, which includes YouTube. I might as well try to fiddle around with those, experiment, put a little bit of time and effort into using those tools to see if it's possible to generate a forum which can offer me some fun. Don't even care about offering you some fun, to be honest. I don't give a fuck about you. I'm only into this for myself. Let's be clear about that. Anyway, rambled for 5 minutes. That's enough preamble from me. So now what I'll do is blow my nose, and then I'll go through this first article. So here it is. Joe Biden has an executive order, which he's got a whole pile of executive orders here. He's got a whole stack of pens on this desk, which is in this Castle Rock Hollywood studio, purporting to be the White House, which it isn't. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that is the speculation that this is actually a fake White House. Do I believe that? Speculation. Well, look, I've always known that I'm a gullible person. I've always known that. I can be led down the garden path, so to speak. I'm not the only one that's gullible. We can all be told lies. I mean, I'm very honest. I'm generally very honest. I'm not a saint, you know, and say the odd fib every now and then. Should it be in my interest or the interest of others? I'm not perfect in that regard, but you know, largely I'm extremely honest, and I kind of expect others to be as well, foolishly, absolutely foolishly. So when I read suggestions that this actually isn't the actual White House, Biden isn't actually the president yet, but this is in a Hollywood studio set. And there's some evidence pointing to that, not necessarily great evidence, but some evidence nonetheless. I do have part of me that wants to believe it for sure, and part of me that does believe it. So if you do look at, I mean, to me, there were these, if as far as I understand, there were these Q messages over the last couple of weeks, and they were saying, hey, look, things are going to happen. There's going to be 5 stages, 6 stages, 7 stages up to the inauguration, and then beyond the inauguration, which is going to lead up to mass arrests and all of this. And one of the things that was mentioned was Castle Rock. We weren't told what Castle Rock meant or what it referred to, but here we are, and there is the production company called Castle Rock, which did produce a Hollywood studio set of the White House, which included this decoration, included these gold curtains or drapes from the Clinton era, and the rug as well was, I believe, the Clinton era rug. So as far as I understand, you've got Q a couple of weeks ago, saying, hey, look, watch out for Castle Rock. No one knew what that meant. And then all of a sudden, we learn that Castle Rock is a Hollywood production team and that owns or produced, I can't remember, a Hollywood set of the White House with this exact same decoration, or very close to the same decor. So, back to the question, do I believe it? I mean, I don't know. I'm not mentally, I'm not banking anything, because it seems, well, number one, it doesn't matter what I fucking think or believe. Doesn't matter what you think or believe either. You don't have any control of the situation, nor do I. So these things will come to light when they come to light. And, we see these things come to light and be suppressed in any case. I mean, what I spent, hours, let's say dozens of hours. I mean, could have been possibly hundreds of hours looking into, I mean, don't get me wrong, I wasn't going down the rabbit hole or anything like that, but I was reading articles and posts in regards to the Kraken and election fraud. Not in a position to fully understand what was being read, but just generally getting this feel that, okay, shit, there's an overwhelming amount of evidence. This has been portrayed by highly professional, highly experienced lawyers, Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, and all of this. So I have a tendency to believe that, oh shit, here's an affidavit from a senior Italian politician, or a lawyer to a senior Italian politician verifying some details. This seems to be in the bag. Oh look, they've seized some Dominion servers. Oh look, they got video of this person. Oh look, they've arrested that person for voter fraud, meddling with the election in this way, that way. There seems to be an overwhelming amount of evidence from what I can see, what I could see, Not that I'm in a position to be able to hands-on access the majority of that evidence, nor understand it fully, but regardless of that, what's being portrayed or presented rather is an overwhelming amount of evidence about US election fraud, as in my opinion, blah, 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 blah. Apparently, I've got to be careful about that subject. But regardless of that, regardless of following all of that and coming to your beliefs, it means nothing anyway. It means nothing anyway. So I'm not going to, I'm not really that enamored with declaring my beliefs to myself or others, when ultimately, who fucking knows? You know, could be this, it could be that, could be right, could be wrong, could be true, could be false. I don't know. You don't know. We can come to some kind of guesstimation, but we're not going to have true knowledge. We're not going to have true knowledge, and even if things are reported with evidence and sources, and through reputable sources and mediums, they'll be debunked. And then once they've been debunked, they'll be rebunked. So it's just this topsy-turvy world of facts, which are like water. You know, the facts aren't steel rods they're going to be held onto and stay firm. The facts are going to be like water, and they're going to run through everyone's fingers. They're going to form a little pool at the bottom of your seat, make you feel like you wet your pants, and that's what we're all sitting in. You know, I don't mean that literally. Anyway, back to this article. Joe Biden executive order. He's going to be rooting out systemic racism, and he's taking a whole of government initiative. So enough of this fucking around with one policy or tackling one organization or one industry or one law. Fuck that. Biden's getting serious. He's like, fuck me. I sat down in this fake studio, Hollywood studio set of the White House, and I opened the drawer, and tons of systemic racism just poured out, jumped out at me. I picked up the phone, through the mouthpiece. It was a stream of systemic racism. He unscrewed the pen top, and it leaked bloody systemic racism all over the paper. He can't get away from it, and so because of this, he's had enough. Fuck this, I'm sorting out systemic racism once and for all, said Joe Biden, and that's what he's done, according to this article. So it says here, during his first hours in the White House, President Joe Biden declared rooting out systemic racism would be a goal for every single department and agency within his government. Biden, who on Wednesday became the nation's oldest president, hang on, Breitbart, there's no need to be ageist, you systemic ageist bastards. Biden, who became the nation's oldest president, issued an executive order shortly after his inaugural address, making the advancement of racial equity a whole of government initiative. The executive order will begin the work of embedding equity across federal policy making and rooting out systemic racism and other barriers to opportunity from federal programs and institutions. Well, they seem to be like a lot of words, don't they? A lot of complicated words, which fuck knows what that means. The work of embedding equity across federal policymaking and rooting out systemic racism. I mean, that's the key point. And other barriers to opportunity. Which reminds me, something I perhaps should have looked up before, Biden and small business grants or subsidies or something. Look at this article quickly. But as far as I understand, and this article may confirm it, Biden has or will be. This is dated January the 15th, so that's prior to him actually being confirmed or whatever, prior to the inauguration. But he announced, let's say, as Joe Biden lays out his sweeping $1.9 trillion economic plan and response to the pandemic, small business advocates are welcoming additional aid for a Main Street that continues to be hammered by COVID. So he's giving $15 billion in grants to help the hardest hit businesses and $35 billion for small business financing programs. Blah, 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 blah. So I have read, as I'm sure you have too, I was hoping this article would state that these grants are going to minorities. Yeah, this article doesn't state it. They're going to minorities, women, even though women aren't a minority, and minorities, people of color. So if you're a person of color or a woman, then you can get a grant for your business. This article is not going to state it clearly. But if you're a white male, then you're shit out of luck. You will not be getting a grant from this additional $1.9 trillion. So, sucks to be you, whitey. The article goes on. As part of the initiative, the Biden administration will order every federal department and agency to undertake a baseline review of the state of equity and devise a plan within 200 days to combat unequal barriers to opportunity in agency policies and programs. Unequal barriers to opportunity in agency policies and programs. Okay, so I'm glad it says barriers to opportunity and not outcome. So, I mean, frankly, I don't have a problem with what's been stated here so far. Yeah, you want to get rid of inequity in the system in all aspects. Yeah, fine, go for it, mate. I mean, I think you'll find that you've done that decades ago. I think you'll find that the laws in all of the Western nations are not racist, none of them, other than against Asians and whites, you know. So what am I referring to there? Well, in particular, I'm referring to the education system in America, but not only America, where I believe, and you can look into this further yourself to get clarification on it, my layman's understanding is, particularly if you're Asian, you could have very high SAT results, and your a position within a major college, university, will be given to a person of color, a non-Asian person of color, over the high achieving Asian person, you know, because of racism, because of I can't remember the term, I always forget the term, but you know, proactive discrimination to support the underclass of the blacks and the Latinos. Let's give them a helping hand up at the cost of the hardworking, particularly intelligent Asians. I mean, that's racist, you know. And I'll acknowledge that I've not I can't forget this word all the time too. I've not explained that very well, particularly well. But you know, if you are listening, which you're not, then I'm sure you'd be able to understand what it was that my point was. And yeah, so look, you're just not going to find racism other than against whites primarily and Asians in some circumstances. You know, in employment as well. I remember articles specifically for the BBC in the UK where they write job adverts and they're clearly stated only apply if you are not white, you know, or they word it ever so slightly differently. Or it may say preferential treatment will be provided to minorities, you know. And if you apply for jobs, I think it's becoming more and more common to ask within their, you know, website-based questionnaire systems. It's becoming more common, I believe, to ask what is your personal pronoun of choice, and what is your sexual preference. And the inference that I get and others get, not necessarily everyone, and it's not necessarily meant, but it's intended rather. Perhaps it's not intended, but it does seem that if you are able to apply for a role and say, oh, actually, yeah, I'm a trans person. Yeah, actually, I'm a gay person. Yeah, actually, I'm a person of minority. That you'll get preferential treatment because a lot of these corporates have diversity quotas for whatever reason. I think because diversity is to be treated as such a wonderful benefit, which is all well and good, other than there comes a cost with it, and the cost is to those people that are not considered worthy of this preferential treatment, which is going to be white men in particular. So, oh, boo-hoo, there you are, crying about white men. God, you get all of the privilege. You're all privileged. You're the most privileged out there. Well, are we? If the only laws are anti-white or pro-minority, then how can you argue that white males are the most privileged? I mean, that just seems like factually incorrect to me. Anyway, let's have a look through the article. As part of the initiative, the Biden administration will order every federal department. Oh, we read the part. Agencies will be required to not only study their own hiring and diversity practices, but must also fairly disperse government benefits and services to families of all backgrounds. So it's my interpretation of that is it's enforced diversity, not diversity, not organic diversity, not diversity on the basis. Okay, right. There's been a lot of immigrants come into America, come into the United Kingdom, Sweden, wherever. Yeah. There's been a lot of immigrants from different nationalities, different ethnicities. Oh, look, our company demographics, our employment demographics have evolved over the last several years. Look at this. Now we have 25% of our employees come from Zimbabwe, or whatever it happens to be. It's not about allowing these allowing diversity to grow, develop organically, naturally, or based on a meritocracy, perhaps. No, it's going to be enforced. It's going to be, seemingly, here's my interpretation, could be wrong, but it seems to be suggesting, hey, major corporation, Pfizer pharmaceutical company, you have 10,000 employees, right? Right, we need a certain percentage of that to be people of minority. So we need you, 10% of your employees to be of a Latin descent. We need 10% to be of an Indian descent. We need 10% to be of an African American descent, whatever the numbers happen to be. But that's seemingly what's happening here, is that it's going to become normalized for businesses, and it will start from the top. It will start with the large corporates to have enforced diversity. Oh, hey Johnny, hey Jill. You are actually a really good applicant for this role. You've got all of the experience. You've been doing a similar role for a long time. You come highly recommended. Having said that, Johnny, Jill, because of these newly enforced planned diversity laws that have come into place, we're not going to hire you. We're going to hire Sanjeet from, he's only been in the country for 3 months, and he meets our diversity quota. So, okay, fine. You're right, Johnny. You're right, Jill. Sanjeet doesn't have the level of experience that you have, but he does have the right background. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do that. We're going to give this other applicant, this other potential employee, preferential treatment in order to achieve equity. And Johnny and Jill say, well, hang on, that doesn't seem right. You know, I mean, what about me? What about the skills, talent, experience that I bring to the table? You know, why can't I have a fair crack at the whip? And the answer is going to be because you're white. All right, Johnny, because you've got all of the privilege already. You know, so that's why, Johnny. All right, you can just pack up your privilege and fuck off out of here. So the article goes on. The executive order makes good on a promise that Biden made to address institutional racism while running for the White House last year. Biden, in particular, leaned strongly into that message last summer after the death of George Floyd in police custody. George Floyd is the woman-beating drug addict that multiple US cities were burned to celebrate his death. I may have articulated that a little bit inaccurately, but largely that's what Biden's point is. And this article ends with a Biden quote: "We have a chance now to give the marginalized, the demonized, the isolated, and the oppressed a full share of the American dream." So look, here he is describing minorities within America as being demonized. I mean, fuck off. It's who's been demonized? Well, it's been Trump supporters that have been demonized in recent years. Marginalized, demonized, isolated, and oppressed. How are they oppressed? I mean, look, I'm no expert in US law, but I'm quite sure that these people of minorities are not oppressed. You know, they have access to the full access to the legal system, the employment system, the welfare system. They have full access to everything America has to offer. What the fuck are you saying oppressed for? I mean, that's just not an accurate word to use. He's describing the situation of his own country inaccurately. And there you are. Every news report is for the last 4 years harasses Trump for saying lies, fake news, and blatant lies. And that's a lie. That's a baseless claim. How can you call the minorities oppressed? In what way are they oppressed? You know, Biden, you're just saying things which aren't true, and you're claiming you're going for unity. Well, I don't know how that's going to help you get unity. You're stating falsehoods. Let's have a look at a couple of the comments. Comment says, "Libs got to say it for years. Now it's my term, not my president." And yeah, I'll agree with that. Biden, you're not my president either. Okay, every now and then I'm going to be riding with Biden because, you know, it's 2021. We've got to move ahead. We've got to dump Trump. We've got to now ride for Biden, be riding for Biden. But you're not my president, mate. And that isn't my White House. That's a fucking Hollywood studio set. I'm not buying into your bullshit. Going to move on to the next article, which, as I say, the articles have one theme today, which is racism, and we're going to be putting an end to racism. It's going to take about an hour to do that, but it's going to be time well spent. Here's the article, the headline: ICE agents ordered to free all illegal aliens in custody. Release them all. And here's a picture of a prison, US prison. It's quite an interesting building, really, isn't it? There is a psychology to this. Psychology to it. There is sense to the arrangement of the cells. I mean, you can have one guard standing in the middle, and they're able to view all of the cells. But you know, to me, having people in prison is extremely expensive. You know, you got to house them, you got to feed them, you got to have the electricity, you've got to have the security. It's expensive, and of course they're unproductive. I'm acting as if the inmates aren't put to work, and I do have an inkling of an understanding that in some prisons they are put to work. Anyway, the article says Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, ICE, tasked with enforcing federal immigration law, are being instructed to free all detainees in their custody as President Joe Biden's administration halts deportations. An internal January 21st ICE memo, independently reviewed by Breitbart News, orders agents to stop all removals, including land and air deportations. In addition, the memo tells agents that all cases of detainees in ICE custody are now to be considered no significant likelihood of removal in the foreseeable future, suggesting all detainees will need to be released. Here's a quote: "Release them all immediately," the ICE official wrote to the staff in the memo. Typically, if detainees do not have sponsors in the United States, agents can hold an individual in their custody. The memo states that it is no longer the case, and that even detainees without sponsors must be released. It is unclear if ICE is currently carrying out the mass release of all 14,000 detainees in custody, 71% of whom are convicted criminals or have pending criminal charges. These detainees are currently held in approximately 138 facilities across the United States. ICE has halted all deportations, regardless of the criminal convictions of an illegal alien, as a result of Biden's executive order. Excuse me, that was disgusting. I should have muted myself. So there we go. Biden is saying, okay, ICE, sure, you're funded by the taxpayers. Sure, you've done your job. You've arrested these illegal aliens. But, you know, fuck it. Let them go. Let them go, mate. Okay, 71% of them are criminals. You know, I mean, there are 100% of them are criminals. They're in the US illegally, but 71% of them have criminal convictions or have been accused of some criminal activity. Fuck that. Just let them go, mate. Why are you being a bunch of assholes? Why are you keeping them locked up just because they broke the fucking law? Let them go, Whitey. Why are you the only security guard here, white, and all of the rest of them are, you know, obviously people of color? Look, you're being racist. Now stop being racist. Now release them. Just let them all go. Yes, the criminals too. Yes, the convicted criminals too. Just let them go, mate. Release them, and you know, we'll just get some nice empty cells, and you know, we'll turn the facility into a mall or a motel or something along those lines. But we don't need to be arresting and detaining criminals just for coming into the country illegally. You know, that's racist, and we're going to be putting an end to that, aren't we, Joe? Yes, we are. So there we go. That's an executive order. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has got something to say about this whole subject too, with an extremely large microphone in her hand, which she seems very comfortable with. She says white supremacists will never win. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went after her GOP Republican colleagues during an Instagram live on Tuesday evening, so about a week ago, close to a week ago, and expressed outrage over Capitol rioters bringing the Confederate flag inside the Capitol, telling GOP members that white supremacists will never win, and suggesting that they resign if they disagree, that the Republicans should resign if they disagree. So yes, this is a week old. actually close to 2 weeks old. She's talking about the insurrection, the Capitol riots, where hundreds of Republicans forced their way into the Capitol. Oh no, that's wrong. The doors and the gates were open for them. They were ushered in. And then they went along to riot and burn down the Capitol. Oh no, that's wrong. They went in and they very largely acted like tourists and took selfies. Sure, some of them inappropriately, and some of them even stole AOC's shoes. Heinous act for which they ought to be charged with treason. But AOC is very confident that white supremacists will not win. And she goes on to say, to some of my colleagues who clearly need the reminder, the Confederacy were traitors to our democracy and white supremacists will never win. She said in a tweet, if any of you motherfuckers, any of you white privileged motherfuckers have any problem with that, maybe you should fucking resign, you assholes, because you're not ready to run an ant farm, let alone serve in Congress, she said, the previous barmaid said. So there you go. So, AOC is very confident that white supremacists won't win. And she's right, because we got Joe Biden on the case. He's uprooting systemic racism at every turn, in every agency, in every department within the United States government and affiliated organizations, associated organizations. He's rooting out systemic racism, unless of course it's against white people, in which case that will stay. And then we got ICE having to get rid of everyone, and we've got AOC saying, great, great. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. We're going to put an end to this white supremacy. And this article here is the Pentagon. They also agree with Joe. They also agree with AOC. The Pentagon warns far-right extremists are recruiting inside the U.S. military. Far-right and white supremacist extremists are actively recruiting in the U.S. military and have gained more support over the past year, the Defense Department said Thursday. 1 week after hardliners who support President Donnie the racist Trump stormed the U.S. Congress, shutting down the legislature, the Pentagon said it will launch an investigation into the extent of extremism in United States military ranks. Blah, 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 blah. One official said there was an increase in far-right activity among the military over the past year. Blah, blah, blah. We know that some groups actively attempt to recruit our personnel into their cause or actually encourage their members to join the military for the purpose of acquiring skills and experience our military force. So, the Pentagon are onto you, whiteies, you white supremacist neo-Nazis. The Pentagon is wise to your tricks. They've identified, or one of them has identified, that you're all a bunch of racists, and they're not falling for your tricks. They got their eyes on you, and they got their eyes on you. That's all that needs to be said there. They will root you out as and when you pop your head up. They'll play whack-a-mole with yourself. So and there you are thinking that the white supremacy is only within the United States government and only within the ICE department, the ICE being the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, and only in the army. But no, that's not the case. It's also out there in social media. So this article here tells us that a creepy AI chatbot has been pulled from Facebook after the AI chatbot started hating minorities. So the chatbot is called Lee Luda. Let's see if we can get an image of Lee Luda. And Lee Luda is an artificial intelligence recreation of a 20-year-old Korean girl, and she was taken off Facebook after making insensitive remarks about minorities and the hashtag #MeToo movement. Lee Luda AI. Okay, so I think this is Lee Luda, the AI character, 20-year-old Korean cartoon of a 20-year-old Korean lady, girl, woman, young lady. So the article goes on. Lee Luda had drawn praise from AI, artificial intelligence experts, and ordinary internet users for her convincing use of slang and everyday speech. But the AI has been removed from Facebook Messenger this week after numerous complaints. It had been live and interacting with some 750,000 users for just 3 weeks. The AI, which is programmed to behave like a 20-year-old female undergraduate, had also been exploited by unscrupulous users who shared advice online about how to make Luda a sex slave and get the chatbot involved in sexual conversations. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So effectively, your Siri or your Alexa or your Google, well, I don't know if Google has a name, but you can turn them into a sex slave. Your Google Assistant can be turned into a sex slave. So, technology marches on. Lee Luda is not the first online artificial intelligence to be taken down after betraying anti-social opinions. In 2016, Microsoft's Tay, an AI Twitter account, lasted just 16 hours before users started reporting racist and genocidal tweets. According to, okay, well, I'm not interested in that one, but the article tells us that Microsoft as well as Amazon have faced similar problems with their AI, and the article finishes up by saying Lee Luda had simply held up a mirror to Korean society, saying it simply reproduced discrimination, hatred, and prejudice against the weak and minorities of our society, such as the disabled, LGBT+, and migrants. Only when people's norms are right, AI ethics can stand right. So, I mean, is that interesting? I find it a little interesting. Even the AI chatbots are white supremacists, but they're just apparently, to some extent, merely reflecting society. Don't know how that happens. I don't know how AI reflects society, specifically greater society. I would have thought AI would reflect the coding, whatever the code was. I would have thought, but what do I know? Very, very little. So there's that article there. So look, it's not just the United States government, which is riddled with white supremacy. It's not just the military, which is riddled with supremacy. It's not just social media and AI, which is riddled with white supremacy. This white supremacy also is prevalent in the UK. So we'll have a look at this article. In the UK, someone was told, go and work for an English company. A worker has been fired for being white. Hang on. Well, that seems odd. Is that still white supremacy? We've got a picture here in England. Typical English lady wearing her head to toe hijab. Do I have the right term there? Hijab, burqa? Can't remember. Head to toe, typical English street. I mean, these are old buildings. These buildings were built. I mean, I'd say like 1950, probably after the war, or would it have been pre-war? But They're not new buildings. It's not a new street. I mean, I'm not going to say what I think. A white British man was fired from his job for an Asian company because he was white, an employment tribunal judge has ruled. 31-year-old Colin Sorby had been recruited by Bradford Management Services, a subsidiary of Mumtaz Foods, which owns restaurants in Bradford and Leeds, on a 0 hours contract, but found that his once plentiful shifts evaporated after he complained that his Pakistani supervisor, Azim Akhtar, had said that only South Asians should be working at the company. Well, that seems a bit fucking racist, Azim. I mean, racist against everyone other than South Asians, you know? The tribunal is satisfied that Mr. Akhtar called the claimant to one side in the production area and told the claimant that this was an Asian company and he should go and work for an English company. I mean, that's just fucking racist, Azim Akhtar. Who the fuck are you to say that, you fucking asshole? That's what the judge ruled, rejecting claims that the incident was a misunderstanding resulting from a language barrier after hearing answer. Yeah, look. So seemingly, if I understand correctly, Azim Akhtar said, oh no, sorry, it wasn't me. No, it's a misunderstanding. I did not mean that. I did not mean to be racist. No. The claimant did not understand. I said one thing, but he thought I said another. He thought, yeah, fuck off, mate. I've seen that in my life many times. You know, you got people who this isn't for everyone. Of course, it's not blanket, of course, but I've come across multiple situations in which people that are I'll say of all ages, a variety of ages. I'll say of all genders. You know, I nearly said both genders, but I'll say all genders. Whose English, where English hasn't been their first language, they'll say things which don't make sense, or they'll say things which are vague and open to interpretation. And when you try to clarify, when you try to pin them down, you know, to make sure that they mean what they say, or what they say is understood by both parties or all parties within the conversation, you know, there's this denial frequently. It's something I've experienced. Oh, frequently, I have not meant that I didn't mean that. You know, plausible deniability. It's a thing. I've witnessed it many times. A lot of people use their poor communication as a means to hide and as a means to encourage those with good communication to carry them through the conversation. Yeah, it's I don't know, just ignore what I've just said. I'm making a very good point, but no one's here in any case, so that's perfectly fine. So the comment was not trivial or unintended, and Mr. Akhtar's intention was to try and persuade the claimant to leave the employment. 3 weeks after complaining about Akhtar's comments, Mr. Sorby, the claimant, was put on call, which is effectively terminated by the human resources manager, Paulo Silva, who cited complaints about Mr. Sorby's performance from the Pakistani supervisor. Yeah, so I mean, look, who knows what the actual truth is? None of us were there, but you know, according to the judge, according to what's being said, this is blatant anti-white racism, or actually pro-South Asian. I mean, he said, look, you know, this is about not being South Asian within this one business. So maybe the guy Azim Akhtar would be equally racist against a Chinese person, or you know, a black person, or someone who wasn't South Asian. Maybe it wasn't particularly directed at a white person per se. So hang on, Joe, this seems a bit odd. In America, right, you've got your situation. You've got a really good handle on it. In America, you have white supremacy, and that's the only inequity that you have. We know that, yeah. But in the UK, it's really fucking weird because it seems like in the UK, there's proven fact, there's actual cases of anti-white racism. You wouldn't have that in America, would you? I mean, I know that you did have that $1.9 trillion economic boost with your $50 billion handouts to small businesses, as long as they're not white. But I mean, that's probably not racist, is it? Probably not. I wouldn't have thought so. Here's another article about what's going on in the UK. UK Health Service Trust repeats whiteness a problem for our time seminar. So an NHS trust has repeated a video seminar titled "Whiteness: A Problem for Our Time." So I'm going to look this up. Let's see if we can track this video down. I'm not going to play it, but it'll be interesting to see what's being said in these critical race theory based propaganda. Oh, here we go. So I won't be playing it. I'll be muting it, but I'll jump ahead. So it's an hour and 50 minutes. I mean, I guess this is the right one. I just Google whiteness a problem for our time. Comes up on YouTube. Yeah, this is what it looks like. It looks like this. Here we go. It's like a Zoom seminar. Yeah, nearly 10,000 views. Look at all these fucking white people on the screen. Where is the diversity? Hey, look, young lady, your shoes are way too big. Fucking idiot. Get some proper size shoes on, clown. So that would be an extremely painful hour and 50 minutes to listen to. But I might skip through that a little later. Put that to one side for now. I mean, does that seem like a good idea just to get an understanding of what these things which I object to are, you know? Because I mean, my guess is it's just going to be rancid, anti-white nonsense rhetoric. It's going to be really painful, and it's going to make me want to vomit. But I could be wrong. And even if it is what I suspect it is, at least it will give a little bit of an increased awareness. So this presentation is rooted in the assumption that the problem of racism is a problem of whiteness. A key and urgent question for us, for those of us who are regarded as white is, how do we interrogate our whiteness to bring about the radical change that is required? Yeah, because we whiteys, right, what we need to do is we need to wake up in the morning, and you can brush your teeth first if you want. You can wash your face. You know what? It's probably even a good idea. Have a little bit of breakfast, but once you've woken up, you're fully awake. You need to sit yourself down, and you need to start interrogating yourself in regards to how to alter your whiteness to bring about the radical change that is required. Okay, so you need to start interrogating yourself, maybe even becoming physical towards yourself, in order to understand and enforce change. That's what you need to start to do. If you're white, if you're not white, then you need to encourage those that are white to do exactly that. As white people, we need to mourn. By facing our past through education as both adults and young people, we can undergo a process of healing, both as perpetrators and victims. The reality of slavery and how white people profited from it and continue to profit from it should be central to our curricula. Well, look, I can say this. I've never been a slave owner. I can say that categorically. I have never owned a slave. I am white, but I have never owned a slave. nor have my parents, nor have my grandparents, nor have my great grandparents, and I would be quite surprised if anyone in my lineage dating back, I don't know, hundreds of years certainly, owned slaves. And if they did own slaves, it would have been at a time in history in which slave owning was like just a normal function of the economy at that time. Don't get me wrong, not saying that it would have been a good or ethical aspect, but it would have been a normal aspect, you know. So why do I care about this subject? I mean, when was slavery? I've never experienced slavery. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. Here's the slavery that I'm aware of in my life. Right, I'm aware that there is human trafficking, sex trafficking. That's a thing, and my understanding is that that's a thing in many countries. Um, so you know, as far as I understand, there are certain countries, let's say Asian countries, I won't name them specifically, they have sex tourism, terrible, disgusting, and they have, enforced prostitution within those countries, extremely nasty. But you see, as far as I understand, it's also a thing in many Western nations. I believe it's a thing in United States, in England, probably everywhere. There's been cases of sex slaves, human trafficking in Australia. I think I'm quite sure. It's That's a real thing, and it is quite prevalent in regards to the number of countries that it exists in. It's not only sex slaves, human trafficking isn't only a thing within third world countries. It is also a thing within so-called first world countries. Outside of that, I'm also aware of the slave trade in Libya and probably other parts of Africa. Libya is Africa. I'm right there, aren't I? I mean, that's my understanding. I'm just stating my awareness as a layman about slavery in modern or current times. Um, and yeah, so I mentioned sex slavery, which is a thing, and here we go. The Libyan slave trade has shocked the world. Here's what you should know. Well, let's see what we should know. Let's have a quick look. A video of men appearing to be sold at auction in Libya for $400 has shocked the world and focused international attention on the exploitation of migrants and refugees in the northern African country. So here are pictures here. Hundreds of African refugees are reportedly being sold in slave markets across Libya. In the past 3 years, more than 450,000 migrants have crossed into Europe from Libya. So yeah, my understanding is that when these people are trafficked illegally into the first world on these rickety boats which are overloaded, if they do arrive in the destination country, they're still under the control of the human trafficking gangs or cartels or such, and they're forced into being sex slaves or some kind of labor. In the UK, I believe I'm right in saying you get a lot of Polish, which are effectively indentured slaves, because whoever's got them into the UK illegally, they demand to be paid back thousands of dollars, thousands of pounds. So you have, I think I'm right in saying, maybe not Polish, maybe it's Romanians. That they have to do extremely difficult manual labor for an extremely low wage. They live in overcrowded homes. They work. They're driven to the farms. They're driven back from the farms, and then they're just kept like cattle. So-called paying back the human traffickers. So that's my understanding of slavery in the modern world. So I don't understand when slavery in the modern world is a thing. It's a documented, fully evidenced thing. Why are we talking about slavery which occurred centuries ago? Why are we talking about that? That was a very long time ago. Why are we talking about that when slavery today is still a thing? And you could say, well, okay, fine, it's still a thing. Slavery is still a thing, but it's in Libya, that's in Africa, you know, that's too far away for us to address. Their culture, their society is too far removed from the US, from Western nations, for us to do anything about. And to that, I'll say, well, that's a load of fucking bullshit. That's a load of fucking bullshit because you just have the US give out billions of dollars to various nations across the country. You've got the US today or yesterday sending troops into Syria. The United States, as well as other Western nations, interfere and interject into other nations constantly. You know, in a militaristic capacity, you got the UN in a humanistic capacity, you got a financial or economic capacity. These guys intervene all the time, constantly. And hang on, charities, non-profit organizations, they're a thing, aren't they? Isn't every fucking so-called Facebook, Instagram influencer supporting some not-for-profit organization or other? You know, isn't that what the world is all about nowadays? If you want to be viewed as being a good person, then you've got to be front and center supporting one charity or another. Well, why aren't we tackling the slavery issue then? Why aren't we doing that? Because we don't give a fuck. Ultimately, it doesn't affect us, so we don't give a fuck. But it's okay to refer to whites as being slave owners when they've not been slave owners. You know, it's okay to refer to whites and entire nations to have benefited from slavery when whatever benefits occurred happened centuries ago. So, I mean, it's just weak. Here's another article. White privilege is fact. White people will never be discriminated against for race. Hang on. What about the guy over here who just got fired for being white? You fucking assholes. You just, you know, it's just factually incorrect. BBC diversity chief. I wonder how much money a BBC diversity chief gets a year for being a diversity chief. Fucking arseholes, man. It's just, this is the kind of thing which sickens me about society. It's not about being a meritocracy. It's not about rewarding those that do well, that provide benefit, that provide value. It's not about that. It's about this having this professional appearance. Oh, we're really professional. We have a diversity chief. Oh, the diversity chief is really important. They do such an important job, and they're highly trained in diversity requirements. It's such a complex matter and so important. So we're going to have to pay them a very large salary. It's like, fuck off. You know, there are so many other people within the workforce that produce things of value that will not get rewarded in the same way the likes of June Sarpong gets rewarded. I don't know how much she gets rewarded, but it's going to be too much. I'll fucking tell you that right now, and I'll do that for nothing. I don't like you, June. I don't like you, June. I don't like you because you're a diversity chief officer. Why are you being a diversity chief officer? I mean, what is it? It's just pretending that diversity is ever so important. That has to be managed. You know, you can't have organic diversity. It's got to be managed and enforced, and all of this. You know, I don't like it. Anyway, June Sopong has insisted that white privilege is a fact and white people will never be discriminated against for their race. You're wrong, June. You know, you made a racist comment and you're wrong. You're a fucking asshole. You're a racist asshole. Sopong, the London-born daughter of Ghanaian migrants, told the Telegraph that there is unfairness baked into our system. In an interview on her role as the publicly funded broadcaster's director of creative diversity. Here's a quote: "I don't for a single second say that all white people are privileged. Of course not. But there are benefits, even if you come from a low income and you're white. You're never judged on your race." Well, you're wrong. You know, here's an article here. The guy was fired for not being South Asian. He was fired for being white. I mean, I can tell you anecdotally, I've not been fired, but I've had incidences where I get harassed or harangued or such. Number one, because I'm white. Number two, because I'm English. You know, so fuck you, bitch. You may be discriminated against because of class. You may be discriminated against because of your age. You may be discriminated against because of your gender, size, etc. But you will never be discriminated against because of your race. And that in itself feeds into the concept of white privilege. You're a fucking asshole, man. Because look, I have been discriminated against because of my age. I have been discriminated against because of my size, because of my gender. Those are things which have happened, in my estimation. Can't prove it. So why is it so heinous to be discriminated against because of race, and it's to be dismissed if you're discriminated against for these other reasons? I mean, it's too much focus on race. It's like, okay, right, okay, mate, you were discriminated against because you're overweight. You're discriminated against because you're far too tall. You're far too short. You're far too skinny. Whatever it is, you know, just deal with that, mate. Fucking deal with it. You know, whatever. Who cares? This person over here was discriminated against because of their race. Well, hang on. They're both discriminated against. But what, you know, seemingly some forms of discrimination are worse than others, according to these guys. Oh, she's paid £75,000 to work 3 days a week. That's a pretty good wage for a part-time job. Part-time job. Yep. To call people white, same. Oh, you know, not all white people have white privilege, but you know, almost all do. That's like all she's doing. You know. All right. So we'll have going to be wrapping things up at this point. No one's popped in. How long have I been going? An hour and 10 minutes. Not a single person has popped in. Gonna see if I mean, I am live, aren't I? Just gonna double check that, I guess. And it's even an open panel, right? You know, come on, people. Why don't you join me? Come on, be fun. Be fun, mate. Yeah, it says I'm live. Started streaming 69 minutes ago. Yeah, says I'm live. And the audio is working too. So, oh, I've had one person give me a thumbs up. So one person popped in. But that's all. Alrighty. Alrighty. Okay, let's have a look at these. So we've only got a few more articles. Might as well wrap them up. Even though no one's joined in, I've kind of enjoyed this anyway. Like, it's given me an opportunity to talk, to ramble, to express my thoughts and opinions about subjects. And also, I have a little bit of an itch to do these live streams for whatever reasons. I have decided to experiment with live streaming, so I kind of, I think about it to a degree, and plan to do it to a degree. So it's good for me to actually go ahead and do a live stream, because it's so much easier to say, fuck it, I can't be bothered. There's no point. No one's going to turn up anyway. It's not going to lead to anything. So easy to have that mindset, to make that choice not to bother. But I'm glad to have done it regardless, had the live stream regardless, because it's all a little bit of practice. It's all a little bit of practice. And I quite like fucking around and talking. The part of this live stream which I'm not totally comfortable with is, I mean, two things, I guess. Number one, I would much prefer to have some people to interact with, number one. But number two, this subject of racism, it's such a delicate subject. You can get cancelled for discussing these topics. If you have wrongthink, if you express views which are not to be tolerated, and I strongly suspect that some of the views that I express could be interpreted in such a way that is worthy of being cancelled or such. And I don't really care about my channel being cancelled too much. I'd rather continue and speak my mind than self-censor in regards to my channel. But people on the internet go further than that, don't they? They try to cause real disruption, which is something which I would not like. So I'm fairly likely to delete this video after a few days or such, if I remember. Anyway, last few articles that I'll go through. AOC proposes funding to deprogram white supremacists. The federal government needs to fund the deprogramming of white supremacists and conspiracy theorists. Thankfully, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is on the case. She says the white supremacist cause is futile, it's nihilist. It's nihilistic, she means. Their world will never exist. That's why we're seeing the violence right now. We have to pick up those pieces. So I kind of agree with at least part of what she said there. Their world will never exist. I saw a couple of interviews online with a couple of white nationalists, white supremacists, Richard Spencer, whatever the terms are that you're going to describe them with, alt-right, neo-Nazis, whatever those terms are, and the ones that I'm using could be inaccurate, which I'm not being purposefully inaccurate, but perhaps my awareness is a little bit lacking. But my understanding of their views in the interviews that I saw were that, yeah, they wanted an ethno-state. They wanted an entirely separate society, nation, which would only have whites in it. And if the question is, well, how are you going to do that? Because there's no country in the world that is entirely white. So what are you going to do? How are you going to put that into place? You're going to buy some land and build your own nation. Is it going to start off with 20 people in the beginning, and where's it going to lead to? And from the interviews that I saw, there were no real answers. So I kind of agree with AOC that their world will never exist. There won't be an out and out ethno state, or if there is, a fully white ethno state, then it's going to come from an existing country which is currently predominantly white, which would be, there's not too many of them anymore. But, I think you'd be looking at Hungary or Poland, Romania, maybe, Russia, possibly, but not Russia. Yeah, so I agree, AOC. Yeah, I mean, their beliefs are nihilistic. I mean, they're futile. I agree with these words, which is why I don't worry about them. Well, one of the reasons why I don't worry about them is like, okay, you've just got some beliefs which are never going to come to fruition. I'm an atheist. I feel much the same about those that are religious. Okay, fine. You believe in a God that doesn't exist. You believe that there's going to be an afterlife when there isn't going to be. Okay, fine. That's your choice. You're more than welcome to believe that. I'm sure it gives you some benefit, literally, and being genuine there. I'm sure it does give a great deal of benefit to have such beliefs. But not going to, in my opinion, it's not actually going to happen. Because as an atheist, I don't believe in those things. So Ocasio-Cortez is saying that this springs to violence, and that's just to me that's just a leap. That's just a leap. Maybe it's not entirely unjustified leap, but I don't feel that the so-called Capitol insurrection does act as a justification for that belief. I think you could say that if an ethno-state was to come about, if those that believe in an ethno-state were to actually try to create one or such, then I would presume that violence would be required, by them in order to do that. I would have thought. I mean, I don't know. So I agree with AOC that there is a connection to violence, but to refer to the Capitol insurrection, it's just playing with concepts. It's disingenuous in my mind. What it's doing is it's really serving to portray Trump supporters, MAGA supporters, the Capitol January the 6th attendees as being white supremacists when they're not white supremacists. So it just seems to be a smearing campaign, an attempt to smear, and it's done very well. It's done with expertise, because this has been a highly honed practice. People, including AOC and others, are very skilled at portraying Trump supporters, white people, conservatives, Republicans as being white supremacists, or at the very least white supremacist sympathizers. They're very good at it. They're adept at it. And one of the reasons why they're adept at it is because they've done it so many times now. They've done it for so long that their skills are honed. But they can just look around at their colleagues, at fellow leftists, fellow Democrats, and they can look at social media, and they can look at the fake news media, and they will see the support that they get, and they will see the lack of pushback that they get. So if you're portraying a rhetoric, whatever that happens to be, and you don't get any pushback, and you see you're getting support and encouragement from your colleagues, then you're going to feel emboldened. And these guys are emboldened, and they're going to be pushing this rhetoric. They're going to continue to push it. This isn't a one-time thing. We've got AOC talking about deprogramming white supremacists. We've got Biden creating executive orders to root out systemic racism at every facility. We've got ICE kicking out all of their detainees. We've got the Pentagon claiming that there's an increase of white supremacism within the army, within the armed forces. This isn't going to stop. this is going to continue. We've got in the UK, they're continuing with their critical race theory training. We've got senior management within the BBC claiming that there's no racism against whites. You know, this is going to continue. It's not going to end here. This is merely the beginning. So she says there are people who are radicalized right now. It's going to take a very long time to de-radicalize these people and a lot of effort. This is a problem that doesn't go away on January the 20th. She said many fringe radicals operate in a misinformation bubble. You see, you know, she's referring to misinformation. She's referring to fake news. She's referring to echo chambers. And all of those things are true. There's a lot of misinformation. There is fake news. There are echo chambers. But look what she's portraying. Look at what these people are portraying. We got this senior BBC representative who's paid a very good amount of money to work part-time just to claim that white privilege is a thing. She's saying that there's no such thing as racism against whites. May not have been her exact words, but that's what were her exact words. I can't see them, but you know, it's pretty much what she said. Yet that's evidence to be completely false. We got the same with Joe. We got you know, Joe's talking about oppression of you know, the minorities. Well, what oppression are you talking about, Joe? No one's being oppressed. You know, we've got these guys talking about the impacts of slavery, yet they're not talking about the slavery which is occurring in Libya and other parts of the world. Or they're not talking about sex slavery. You know, so that's misinformation. It's disingenuousness. We'll move on to the penultimate article. Left-wing journalists argue to deprogram Trump supporters, enforce consequences. Look at these photos. I'm already annoyed. This lady, look how concerned she looks. Oh, this is such a serious subject. Oh, so concerning. In the wake of Capitol Hill riots, two prominent left-wing journalists want to deprogram Trump supporters and force these conservatives to suffer consequences. Oh, so what is that? You want to force them to suffer consequences? I mean, is that vindictiveness? Seems like it might be. There are millions of Americans, almost all white, almost all Republicans, who somehow need to be deprogrammed. It's as if they are members of a cult. So, you know, these are prominent journalists, these are prominent politicians that believe that you need to be deprogrammed and de-radicalized. And yes, they do mean you, because they're talking about millions of people need to be deprogrammed, de-radicalized, millions. So yeah, that includes you, mate. So this conversation, look, I mean, if you get multiple entities talk about this subject at the same time, to me, that is saying, okay, this subject is on the agenda. This subject will be pushed. It may be pushed a little bit and then left alone, but it will come back up again. This will be pushed. Deprogramming, de-radicalizing conservatives. And what's that going to serve? I mean, it will, look, it's just a threat at this stage, isn't it? So if you're like me, right, you're just gonna take that on board, and you may be scared to self-censor. You may be choose to look at yourself in the mirror and do what this lady said. I can't remember, but interrogate yourself to try to get rid of your own racism or whatever. So is that what we're all going to be starting to do now? We're going to go, fucking hell, all these people say that, you know, we're white supremacists because we're conservatives and because we're white. Fucking hell, that doesn't sound good to me. I didn't realize. Let's try to do something about that. Is that what we're going to do? Or are we just going to self-censor? You don't need to deplatform us, Alexandra, Twitter. Hey, Jack. Jack, you don't need to remove us from Twitter. We'll just leave ourselves. We'll just leave. You know, we'll close down our Parler account. Oh, actually, we don't even need to. You've closed it down for us. We'll just leave, Vijaya. Yeah, no, Vijaya, we've caused you too much problem having our own thoughts and our own opinions. We are white. Apologies for that. We do have white privilege, obviously, and it's impossible to be racist against white people. We've established that, even though the evidence and common sense would dictate otherwise. So now we'll just go and interrogate ourselves, and we'll amend our ways. We will go through a program of self-deprogramming, self-de-radicalization, just so that AOC doesn't have to force us into one of her FEMA camps. You know, because we wouldn't want the likes of these journalists to be concerned. Yeah, if they're concerned about nonsense, then we must adjust our behavior. All right, so look, there's my live stream for 1.5 hours. Gonna wrap things up now. I've gone through all of the articles that I was going to go through. I've got one more which is kind of interesting, but I'll save that for next time. And yeah, thank you.